Welcome, everyone. My name is Jim Doty. I am the founder and director of the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education, of which His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the founding benefactor. The mission of Seek Care, as many of you know, is to explore the neuroscience of compassion and altruism. And the reason being that this has a profound effect on our peripheral physiology and ultimately has a profound effect on our physical and mental health and our longevity. So that is one of our missions. The other mission that we have is to develop techniques or interventions that allow individuals to potentiate that those behaviors within themselves to gain those benefits. And then the last thing that we do is have conferences, seminars, and programs such as this, where we invite distinguished speakers to share their experiences in regard to compassionate living. And many of those speakers come from the domain of not only neuroscience, but the spiritual realm, as well as business, education, and other sectors. It's really a great joy to introduce our next speaker. I've known Barry some time. I believe we first met in Dharamsala at a Mind and Life event. As a neurosurgeon, the thing that struck me about Barry is that when he was 11, he had a brain abscess, and that had a profound effect on his life, in that from that experience, it led him to have a desire to become a physician and ultimately explore this realm of being of service and caring for others. He did his undergraduate degree at Berkeley, unfortunately, in philosophy, and then spent a year, if I recall correctly, at the University of London, Sweden, and then did his MD at USC and his family practice residency, I believe at Ventura County Medical Center, and then practiced in Ojai for some time, after which he decided to become a monk who was ultimately ordained by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and has served in that capacity, as well as caring for a number of Rinpoches and Lamas, as well as other individuals who are not so high in the spiritual realm, the regular people like us, and also in India. And all the time he has done this simply to be of service. His interest in medicine, as I explained, began with that event when he was 11, but he's really explored this connection to caring for others in his capacity as a physician, and ultimately each of our capacities to care for another, and if you will, the value proposition of those actions and behaviors. So without further ado, it's really a great honor to introduce my friend, the Venerable Barry Kerzin. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure to be here with my old friend Jim Doty and the Seek Care Center and at Stanford. I've spent a week here basically. I've had a few other programs and getting to know a lot of people, and it's been quite wonderful. Some of the things that people are doing here are spectacular. I spend a lot of my life traveling, have for the last 8 years. I have kind of a regular gig, so I have a few things happening in the States, and then I'll be in Russia for a month, Mongolia for a month, Japan for a month, and then back in India. And in the beginning of the year cycle, I'm in Hong Kong for a month or two, month and a half or two. I'm an honorary professor at the University of Hong Kong. I'm teaching compassion there, which is really wonderful. And we're developing actually a curriculum for undergraduates on compassion. It'll probably take a couple of years to get off the ground. These things don't happen overnight. So a lot of good things are happening, and working with some tremendous people. Earlier, last week, let's see, I don't know where we are, Wednesday last, right? We had a program with, I did a talk at the Medical Grand Rounds, Abraham Verghese and Bruce Feldstein was there, and we had the three of us had lunch together. And so it's been a lovely time to connect and see wonderful people doing wonderful things about compassion. Our particular interest with Altruism in Medicine Institute, which we call AMI, is bringing more compassion into the healthcare sector, because we feel that, of course, compassion is important everywhere, but when people are sick and families have loved ones who are sick, then, a compassionate response from the healthcare team is essential, critical, and often is not there. Sometimes, of course, it is, but often it's not. And that's a place where people really need it. I mean, everybody needs it, okay? But when your chips are really down, when you're really sick and your loved one is really sick, you need to feel that someone's really caring for you. You need to have trust in that team that's supposed to be caring for you. So we're trying to work with medical students, nursing students, other healthcare professional students to, train them. And now we're trying to get some of this curriculumized, okay? So it's actually part of their education. It's a process that'll take time, but that's kind of that's our mission at AMI. Today, I'd like to do a few things with you. I'll talk for a while, okay? And then we'll have a real good time for interaction, discussion, question and answers, okay? If I don't know the answers to your question, I'll say I don't know, okay? I mean, I may start fudging a little bit, and then I'll catch myself and say, sorry, I don't really know. And then I'd like to do a little experiential stuff with you. How many of you have a meditation practice? Raise your hand. Wow, almost everybody. Okay. How many people at least have meditated a few times? Raise your hands. Almost everybody, but some people know. Okay, very good. So we're going to meditate later together, okay? We'll do that. And I also we'll see what the time is. If there's time, I'd like to show you a nice breathing exercise, which we call the 9-round breathing, okay? When we first came in a little early, I said to everyone, I'm going to go sit, after we talked a little bit, a few people, I said, I'm going to go sit down there and settle. And I invite you to join this settling. And some people said, well, what's that? How do we do that? So let's talk, if we have time, we'll do the 9-round breathing exercise, which is a nice way to kind of almost immediately settle. Okay, settle your mind so it's not so much jumping around, scattered, and, so it's real smooth and balanced, okay? Okay. My talk tonight, I changed the slides from the original ones I sent in to Kelly, and I did that because I wanted to kind of talk about some of the areas that we just almost naturally get involved with, okay? You'll know what I mean in a moment. That block our natural expression of compassion, our natural feeling of compassion. Things like anger, jealousy, and critical judgment of ourselves and others, and pride, arrogance. I think I threw ignorance in there. So I may talk a little bit about ignorance from the Buddhist perspective, and the opposite, which is understanding who we are and reality correctly. We'll see, okay? Talk a little bit about meditation near the end, and I think that'll be a lead-in for us then to meditate, okay? And then we'll open it up to question and answers. So I ask you, if you do have questions, if you don't mind, to save them. And if you're liable to forget, just, make a note. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, and let's go do it. This might, if I hit the right button. Okay, so kind of what we're talking about with this whole business is turning inward. Normally our lives are focused outside. We're looking forward, usually. Sometimes we're looking in the past. Okay? Rarely do we drop into the present moment. Kids often can do that better than we can. You know, kids can sometimes just drop into the present, okay? When we're involved with music, when we're involved with a math problem, when we're doing neurosurgery, you know, we can get absorbed. And at that time, we're in the present. We're not thinking generally so much about the future, about the past, okay? And when we're absorbed, when we're more in the present and we're absorbed, time has a sense of passing quickly. So when we check, we say, oh boy, an hour went by. It didn't seem like an hour. And the reverse is true. When the mind is jumping around in the future and in the past, then we look at our watch and it's like, I thought an hour went by, what was 5 minutes? Okay, so that relativity of experience of time connected to our being absorbed in the present moment versus being distracted, okay? So inner peace, what's inner peace? Anybody have a clue? Raise your hand if you have a clue of inner peace. Okay, some people, great. I assume that means you have some experience. Lovely, lovely. Because it's not something you can sort, I mean, you can conceptualize it, but it's really an experiential kind of thing, inner peace. And you know if you have it, and you know if you don't, okay? And sometimes we can drop into it, and at other times we get caught up in the normal stuff and we get pulled away from the inner peace. Some people have the ability to maintain that inner peace all the time, virtually all the time. You know, even when they're look like they're getting caught up with stuff, still there's an inner peace that's kind of continuing. Some people have that ability, have trained that ability, okay? His Holiness the Dalai Lama, of course, is like that, but there are many other people that have that ability. Usually it's trained, okay? Through meditation, through continually recognizing our selfish stuff and kind of flipping it over into concern and action for others, doing that, you know, again and again and again. That brings a tremendous kind of, you know, peace and balance inside. We tend to spend a lot of time in the past, okay, thinking about, well, I should have done it this way, right? We do a fair amount of that. That takes us out of the present moment. We tend to spend time in the future, you know, planning. I mean, that's a big thing. People in academic communities, our lives are planning, right? You know, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? When are we going to do this? Scheduling and all that stuff takes us into the future, okay? The present is where we often find this inner peace. Now, it doesn't mean we can't be in the past, can't be in the future. Obviously, we have to be. The point is, when we want to or need to come back to the present, to cultivate the ability to do it. Okay? And I think some of you have done that. I'm guessing the people that raise their hands for yes, inner peace, probably know how to do that. Come back into the present and find that sort of balance, that sort of joy, that sort of sense of richness, of meaningfulness, okay, in the present moment. Okay? And as we develop this further, as I said before, we can stay kind of pretty much in the present, and yet we can be active mentally and physically. Okay? It's possible to do. Okay? Okay, so I'd like to talk about emotional hygiene. Okay? Emotional hygiene. This is a newer term. Cool. Thanks very much. The cooler man just came. I saw a guy come in here with a little thing with a red light on it, and he's pointing like this. I'm thinking, what the? But he was, you know, we should be cool in a few minutes. Then I figured he's got a hat on. Oh yeah, this is the Stanford cooler team. So, good. Great. Just when we're talking about emotional hygiene, he comes and cools the physical environment, okay? So now with our emotional hygiene, we're going to cool the mental environment, okay? That's what we're going to do. So what is emotional hygiene? You know what hygiene is, obviously. We talk about, you know, personal hygiene, public kind of hygiene. So emotional hygiene is to kind of clean up, to use the metaphor, okay? some of the emotional stuff that's rough, like sandpaper, okay? It's rough on us. Usually it's rough on us. It also is rough on those around us sometimes. We all know that. Okay, we've been on both sides. Okay, it's like sandpaper. What we're trying to do is make it, you know, I don't know, they used to say lapis lazuli was the metaphor. You know lapis? That blue stone? You've got lapis. Wonderful, yeah, great, thanks. Lapis lazuli, yeah, it's a blue stone, got little flecks of gold things in it. Thank you. And often comes from Afghanistan. In the old texts, excuse me. In the old text, when they talk about smoothness, they usually talk about lapis lazuli, okay? So that's kind of the opposite of sandpaper here, emotionally, okay? So emotional hygiene is to, you know, make our emotions more like lapis lazuli, okay? Make it more like honey, you know, that it glides. You know, I'm going to date myself, but when I went to college, there was a guy by the name of, I remember his nickname. What's his name now? They called him Silk. Played for UCLA. Great basketball player. If I knew the name, you'd know him.
Chamberlain?
Huh? No. Anyway, they called him Silk because he was so smooth on the court. He was like a ballet dancer. Okay? So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of our emotional hygiene, is to make our stuff smooth like a ballet dancer. Okay? And let's talk about that a little more, because that's important. So first we have to recognize. That's a key. Often these, sometimes we call them, in Tibetan we call them numompa, and in Sanskrit klesha. Some of you know those terms. Okay? This is the sandpaper. This is the roughness of our emotions. Sometimes they're aggressive, you know, things like anger, jealousy. Okay? They have an aggressive tone. Extreme competition, okay, putting someone else down, okay. Sometimes so those are the ones we call kind of aggressive or aversion, pushing away others, okay. And then we have ones that are pulling people towards us, attraction, okay. And sometimes that's very strong, okay. So these so-called destructive emotions, they destroy our peace, okay. They take us away from our balance. They take us away from the present. They take us away from that, you know, gliding, silk, smooth, honey-like stuff, and make it kind of rough. Okay, so the aggressive aversion stuff push others away, and the ones that are, you know, pulling the other way are like desire, strong desire, you know, compulsive stuff, addictive kind of stuff. These things, you know, kind of pull strong towards, okay, both getting us out of balance. Okay, so destructive emotion destroying our peace, our balance. Okay, so first we need to recognize them, because sometimes these things happen subliminally, right? You know, like the negative judgment stuff. Many of us have that record playing a lot. You know, when we see, hear, or think, usually of somebody else, we put them down. Usually we put them down. And we do the same thing with ourselves. Often we just, you know, we compare with others and we put ourselves down. And often it happens nearly subliminally, and often not aware of it. If we start to turn in and observe what's going on here now, inside, what am I thinking, what are my feelings, what's my mood? What are my attitudes? We can start recognizing these things more, okay? So sometimes when I teach meditation, afterwards people come up to me and they say, you know, I've always thought I was a pretty happy person. And I say, well, great. And they say, well, and then I started meditating. I say, great. And then they say, you know, I think I'm going crazy. And I say, great. Or sometimes I say, congratulations. Yeah. I say, because that stuff's always going on. You haven't recognized it. So it's a little painful sometimes to recognize all of our stuff, because we all have a lot of stuff, okay? And sometimes it's a little painful to see that, okay? But that's growth, okay? That's growth. Yeah. So recognition is very important. How do we do that? Spend more time just looking in, right now. What am I thinking? What's going through my mind? What am I feeling? Okay. What are even the sensations in my body? What are my attitudes, my kind of general mood? All that stuff. Just check up. So recognition, and then cleansing. Okay. Destructive emotions I mentioned. So cleansing is going to be, it's not suppressing, okay? We all know what suppressing stuff is, because, we've all done that, okay? You try to just push it down, out of sight, out of mind, but of course it doesn't go away, right? And it usually comes back stronger. So that's not so healthy, to suppress the so-called negative or destructive emotions, okay? So what do we try to do? We try to get smart. Okay, because the mind is very, very tricky, okay? So we have to be very tricky to work with this tricky mind, okay? And so what we try to do is learn ways to transform, actually transform, okay? So how do you make, see if I got this right, how do you make butter? You seen anybody make butter? Some of you people make butter? Yeah, okay. What do you start with? Huh? Cream. Okay, you start with cream. In the old ways, the way the Tibetans do it, they have these long, used to be wood, now they use the PCV stuff sometimes, thick tubes, maybe a meter and a half long, and they churn it, they put a thing going in and out, churn the cream. And then what's the end product? Butter. And where's the cream? I'm sorry?
Both places,
everywhere, both places. Okay, where's the cream? Huh?
It's transformed.
Transformed? Gone. Yeah. There's no more cream. It's butter. Okay? So that's what we're trying to do. That's transformation. We're trying to actually change these so-called negative, harmful, destructive emotions into something positive, so that there's no residual, okay, of the negativity. Okay? So that's very different, you can see, than suppressing it. When we suppress it, we're not so aware of it, but it's there and it'll come back. Okay? When we transform it, it's gone. Okay? At least that particular emotion at that time. Doesn't mean all of our, for example, anger is going to be gone when we transform one time. Doesn't mean that. We have to do more work to get that anger completely transformed. Possible, we'll talk about that. But, so that's what we mean by cleansing. Okay? How am I doing for time? I think I'm too slow. I got to speed up a little bit. Okay, critical judgment. This is an important one because I think we do this a lot. And as I said, we're not often aware of it. We criticize ourselves, we criticize others. We usually put people down, ourselves and others. He or she is not so bright, he or she is not so pretty, he or she is not so handsome, And we do the same thing with ourselves. I am not so pretty, I am not so handsome, I'm not really so smart, so many other people are smarter than me, that kind of stuff. We do that a lot. Okay, and often we're not aware of it. So let's start to tune in and become aware of it, because then we're going to work with that, okay? And then we're going to really transform it, okay? The process takes work, it takes commitment, it takes time, okay? So we usually want to push a button, we want to get a result. It doesn't work this way. Our mind doesn't work that way. It's a little bit like athletics. Is it getting cooler?
Yes.
It is? Okay. Good. Good. If someone's going to be an Olympic star or really a hot professional athlete, they can achieve that overnight? Impossible. You got to do hours of training, day in, day out, months and years, right? To really perfect your physical athletic prowess. Same thing with the mind. Okay? It takes time. But that's kind of neat, because it's good stuff to do. It's almost kind of fun when you start doing it, because you can kind of begin to have this feeling you're doing something really worthwhile. Not only for yourself, but as the sandpaper smooths out from number, I don't know, who knows, who's a carpenter? Who knows numbers of sandpaper? What's the rough one? 20, 40? And then what's the real smooth one?
400.
Huh?
400.
400. So going from a 40 to a 400 sandpaper, real rough and, grainy and, like sand, to real smooth, okay? Anger. Okay, I'm going to ask the question opposite here. Anybody here never get angry? Raise your hand. Anybody never get angry? Sometimes I get a hand or two. Okay, no hands. Yeah, usually. We all get angry sometimes. It's part of being human. Part of being human. Okay. Anybody like getting angry? Raise your hand. Honestly, do you like getting angry? Anybody? Some people raise their hand sometimes. Maybe. Okay, good. One person thinks yes. Sometimes we feel kind of strong and empowered when we get angry. Okay? But often, that if we get that feeling, it doesn't last. And then it turns to kind of regret or guilt or like, oh, I blew it again, So we don't usually feel good about our anger, at least maybe at the beginning, but we don't like it. Okay, we know the health consequences. I mean, you guys know that, I'm sure. Type A personality, more heart attacks, blood pressure problems, marital problems, more alcohol, drugs. I don't know if there's more suicide in angry people. I don't know that. I'm not sure. So it has health consequences. It obviously has mental health consequences, to be angry. And it doesn't solve problems. Okay. Now, caveat. Some people think that compassion is like a limp Hokkaido eggplant. Anybody know Hokkaido? Huh? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Hokkaido is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I spend a lot of time in Japan. I've been there more than 20 times. And my favorite place is Hokkaido, where I've been maybe 6 times. I teach in Asahikawa University in Central, near Daisetsu-san, which is the most beautiful mountain range in the world. An incredible place. And for a few months a year, because the rest of the time it's worse than Alaska, for a few months of the year, they grow incredible vegetables because the soil is so fertile. And they grow eggplant and potatoes and onions, which there's nothing like a Hokkaido onion. They're so delicious. So my analogy is a limp Hokkaido eggplant. Okay? Some people think that compassion's like that. Okay. It's not. Okay. Some of the most ardent fighters for justice, okay, for the planet, for human beings, are compassionate people inside. Okay? Mother Teresa. Tough, little lady, Mahatma Gandhi, little guy. Tough as nails. He kicked out the British who'd been there 300 years, almost single-handedly. I mean, he had movements, nonviolent. Incredibly strong, but inside compassion, no anger. Okay? Martin Luther King, incredible. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, incredible. Sometimes can be very powerful and strong, always love and compassion inside. Okay? So we're not talking about passivity. We're not talking about weakness. Sometimes it's incredible strength, and on the outside can look like wrath. Okay? Scary. Okay? Inside it's all love and compassion. So the motivation is what's so extremely important. Okay. I should stop about 7, so we have to meditate. We got a few things to do. Let's move on. Jealousy. Anybody here never get jealous? Raise your hand. Anybody? Never get jealous? Really? Some audiences, many people raise their hands. Something about Stanford. This is a jealousy place? Sorry?
Competitive.
Competitive. It's highly competitive, of course. Many places are highly competitive. So jealousy and competition, maybe sisters, brothers, maybe? Could be. Could be. Okay. So jealousy, we often feel that we're getting back at somebody. It's a hurt. We feel hurt by them, so we're going to kind of get back. You know, it's kind of that kind of a feeling often, not always, often. You know, we can't enjoy the other person's success. You know, it doesn't hurt the other person usually. It may a little bit, like in a family they know or something, but in general it doesn't hurt so much the other person. Who does it hurt? Sorry? Yourself, exactly. We are hurt by our own jealousy. It constricts us. It closes the heart. Okay? When we can let go of hurt, when we can feel happy for the other person that's had some kind of success, you know, we're actually going to feel happy. Okay, this is, Stanford community, a lot of wealth. What's that car called? A Tesla? Tesla? You know, I heard about a Tesla. I think I may have seen one once. I drive around the streets here and I see a red one, a black one, you know, a white one. Lots of Teslas around here. They're expensive, aren't they? Yeah, they're expensive cars. Yeah. So, okay, you buy your Tesla, okay, and you park it. You come to work or school. I don't know if you have a rich parent, you come to school, or you come to work, and you park your Tesla. You know, you do your work, you do your student thing, and then you go out and you find your Tesla, and you come and you take a look at it, and you see that there's this scratch all the way down the side. Yeah. You get pretty upset, right? And so your friend, you know, sees your new Tesla, maybe your neighbor, and if that person gets jealous, they can kind of not engage the new owner of the Tesla. Okay, get jealous. But on the other hand, if they say to themselves, okay, that's old stuff now. You know, I heard some guy in some red kind of looked like a dress or something talking about a new way to look at jealousy, okay? Rather than get jealous, to feel happy. And what did he say? Something about, you know, feel happy for that person who had some success or some new toy or whatever. So I said, okay, let's just try it. So I go next door, you know, there's probably guard gates and everything. I got to press the buttons and say who I am and da-da-da-da-da. Knock on the front door and say, did someone here get a new Tesla? Oh yeah, that's mine. It's so beautiful. And the guy says, really? You like it? You say, yeah, it's such a gorgeous car. Energy efficient, doesn't need fuel. Is that right? Teslas don't need fuel? You know, works on some magic, I don't know, electricity. We don't know electricity, magic like electricity, you know. And so it's very environmentally friendly, beautiful. And I really want to compliment you for helping the environment. Really? Yeah. Well, would you like to take a spin? I'd love to. So you go take a spin in the Tesla, right? And then finally, you know, you're so enthusiastic, he stops, or she stops, the owner of the Tesla, and says, would you like to drive? You say, wow. You take a spin in the Tesla, okay? That's rejoicing. It's feeling happy for the other person's success rather than closing down and feeling jealousy. So you can see that these things are obstacles. I mentioned this earlier. Let me say it again. They're all obstacles to our natural, you know, expression of love and compassion. They block. So we're trying to bring down the barriers, okay, the blockade, and allow that compassion to manifest, okay? Arrogance. Anybody here ever felt arrogant? Raise your hand. Probably everybody, maybe a few people know. We go back and forth. Sometimes we feel we're no good. Sometimes we feel the other guy's no good. Okay, so we kind of, you know, we alternate, right? We put ourselves down, we put others down. Getting trapped in arrogance is a problem, or get stuck. It's a little bit like a prison, okay? because we begin to not listen to others. We feel we know it all. Okay. So we begin to wall ourselves off. Okay. I'm staying at a home with a dog, and I have some allergies, and I can feel a tickle in my throat. It's a gorgeous dog, three-legged dog. It was the sweetest thing, but unfortunately I'm a little allergic to her. So when we become arrogant, we kind of feel that we're superior to others, and we don't listen so much to others. And what happens with our genuine relationships, friendships with others, they start to diminish. People don't like another person that's arrogant, thinks they know everything. Okay? So this is a kind of a trap, and once we get into it and stuck in it, hard to get out because we don't listen to others. Okay? So if you find yourself sometimes getting arrogant, you know, put the brakes on. Remember some of the deficits with arrogance. Okay? Come back to a more healthy, happy place, which I call healthy self-confidence. Healthy self-confidence. Nobody gets put down in healthy self-confidence. You don't put yourself down, okay? You don't put others down. Healthy self-confidence. And we can start to work to get more to that direction. Again, recognizing when we're out of control, these negative emotions, okay, destructive emotions, and just tell ourselves, okay, that's old stuff. Maybe it's from our childhood, you know. I don't need this anymore. That's one general way to approach it. There are many other techniques for this transformation. We'll mention a few, but we don't have time to go into everything. Maybe in the question and answer period we can talk more details on these if you're interested. Ignorance. Okay, I'm going to say a few words about ignorance. There are many types of ignorance, and here I'm talking about an ignorance of reality. Okay? So what does this mean? What's an ignorance in terms of reality? Not knowing reality correctly. Anybody here in quantum physics? Raise your hand, the quantum physicists. Some of you guys know quantum. How many people know a little bit? You've read the pop stuff? Yeah, a lot of you. I'm like that. I read it in the newspapers and the online stuff. I love it. Okay? Actually, the Buddhist understanding, and I'm going to go now to Buddhism. So far, I haven't talked about Buddhism. What I've talked about is applicable to anybody who's a human. Anybody here an alien from another planet? You probably don't want to raise your hand. Thank you. Mork and Mindy? My favorite. I cried when Robert Williams died. I just cried. I couldn't. He was spectacular. Mork and Mindy, yeah. That was from another planet, wasn't it? Mork and Mindy? I think so. Yeah. Mork and Mindy, aliens. But okay. So reality, quantum physics is very close to the Buddhist understanding of reality. Very close. Not the same, but very close. Okay. Einstein. I'm going over my head. I don't know this stuff very well, but I have a little bit of a science background. But as a physician. The Einstein's general and special theory of relativity. General is more gravity. Special relativity has to do with how things, depending on the context, very relative, okay? Very Buddhist understanding. Entanglement theory, where something could have been in contact or not in contact, and can be at opposite ends of the universe, still having influence over each other. Okay? This entanglement theory from so-called quantum mechanics, quantum physics. The Schrödinger cat thought experiment. The cat's, thought experiments, not actual. Okay, the cat's put in a double, I think, steel cage. And anyway, inside there is a little bit of radioactivity, and there's a 50-50 chance that the vial will break in a certain, short period of time. I don't know what he did. Did he do a minute? I forget the time period. Anyway, some, time. There's 50-50 chance the vial will break, and the cat will be exposed to radioactivity and die. Okay? 50% chance the vial will not break and the cat will not die. And so from a quantum physics perspective, they often, and there's a lot of controversy and debate about this, but they often say the cat is both alive and dead. Okay? Okay? That's also a very Buddhist notion, you know, that you can't quite, you know, that there's not a solid reality. Okay, I mean, we just all know that from our chemistry, that things are made up of molecules and atoms and subatomic particles, and they're moving around pretty quickly. In fact, an atom, 99.99, okay, 99.99999999999, 12 to the 12th power, is empty space. You have a nucleus, got these electrons, and they're not really the ball and stick models we learned, as I learned, okay, but they're much more energetic, okay. But you know, all that is empty space. So why don't you fall through your chair? Because your chair is made up of atoms, your body is made up of atoms. Why don't you just fall through? Yeah, yeah. Why not? I don't know. So these kind of things are very much connected. I mean, they're very. We say tumba and mi tumba in Tibetan. Tumba is kind of, what do you say? It's in accord, it's congruent. Very congruent. Many of the theories and thinking from quantum physics and Buddhism. So ignorance is the opposite. Ignorance is what we normally think of as things as solid, unitary. How many bodies do you have? How many bodies do you have? I mean, just common sense.
One.
One. We think we have one body. Is it one thing, our body? Okay, when we think about it, we think, okay, there's all these organs and da-da-da-da-da. But when you just kind of look without thinking, oh, there's somebody, his body. We think one body, normally. We don't think that it's got all these different ingredients or parts, okay? We also think that it lasts, okay? Do you think the chair that you sat in about 50 minutes ago or longer, is it the same chair now? Is it? Huh? It's not? It's somebody else's chair?
The atoms change.
Yeah, but okay, when we think about it, the atoms are changing. But normally we take it for granted it's the same chair. Otherwise we probably wouldn't sit in it, right? If we think, oh my gosh, all these atoms are changing and it's 99 point empty space, that's not safe, right? But we sit in it. And we relax, and we enjoy. Okay? So we don't take it that way. That's my point. When we think about it, okay, yeah, we can understand. But, you know, how we normally react to ourselves and things is different. Okay? So that's all ignorance. And the opposite is wisdom. And that's called shunyata in Sanskrit, shunyata. Okay? Or tumpani in Tibetan. The English translation usually emptiness. Doesn't mean nothingness. It just means kind of a lack of all this ignorance. You know, what it isn't. Okay? A little bit like quantum physics. Okay, good. Shifting our focus away from me, to I, from I. Shifting our focus away from me. So iPhone, okay, and shifting, let's see. So normally we see differences, right? That's the way we normally, when we think about it, if we're kind of, understanding kind of people, most of us are, but normally when we react, it's like, he's old, she's young, he's bald, he's gray, she's beautiful, he's gorgeous, all that stuff. We make it but different, He's tall, she's small, skin color differences, religious differences, cultural differences, country of origin difference. We use all this, gender differences, all these differences. That's usually how we measure up people in front of us, other people, okay? But we share one common important quality. All of us share this common important quality. None of us wants to hurt. We all want to feel well. All of us, even the animals, we don't want to hurt. We want to feel good. The more we remember this, the more it becomes like a mantra. Okay? We start relating to others differently. We start to feel closer to others automatically. We find some common ground. Okay? I don't know what I have next. Oh yeah. So we can shift from a selfish attitude to a more inclusive, compassionate attitude, to concern for others. Okay? We can make that shift. Okay? We can redefine who we are, our identity. Right now, pretty much, our identity is to this body, these emotions, these thoughts. Maybe our family also, to some degree, close loved ones. But we are no longer limited to this body, our identity. Why not? This body does not belong to us. Who does it belong to? Huh?
Life itself.
I'm sorry?
Maybe just life itself.
Life itself? Okay, good, I like that. It comes from the sperm and the egg of mother and father. So the rightful owners are our mother and father. They produced it, this body. Okay? So when we begin to think this way, we a little bit loosen our attachment that it's mine. Okay? Yet we call it our own, even though it came from our parents. It's rightfully theirs. Okay? So we can shift this strong attachment to I, me. We can shift it to we. Okay? And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama often says, when he comes before a crowd, he says, brothers and sisters. And he means that. He means that we're all brothers and sisters. One human family. Okay? We have to train ourselves to start thinking this way again and again. And then it starts to color our reactions. We feel closer to others. If someone anywhere is hurt, it's almost as if we feel the pain. Like before, it was some part of our body that got hurt. Okay? Because now the human family becomes our new identity of ourself. One human family. I like this a lot. I always keep it in because it just makes me smile and feel good. I don't know if you can see it, the lights are on, but it's got a bunny with its ear up and hugging, kind of embracing this piglet. And they both look very, very happy, yeah? So tremendous kindness, yeah? Forgiveness, letting go of hurt, okay? We briefly touched on that. Having hurt is more harmful to us than it is to the other person, okay? So to recognize that and just let it go, Try to do it with the small stuff first. It might be a little easier. Develop the habit of letting go hurt, forgiving the other person. Forgiveness is usually a solo activity. Usually you don't tell the other person. You can, of course, but usually it's in your heart where you forgive and you let go. Okay? You get tremendous benefit from doing this. It's a tremendous thing to do. Gratitude. Gratitude for Mother Nature, for life itself, for all other beings. From the Buddhist perspective and the Hindu perspective, and now a lot of people have some openness to the possibility of reincarnation. Anybody here open to the possibility of reincarnation? Wow, half of you guys. Amazing. Okay, amazing. Okay, so this means that maybe this isn't the only life. Okay? If that's true, just for a moment, let's try it on for size. If it's true, it means we've had a life before. Life before that keeps going. We've had lots of lives. So if, let's assume we've been human for all those lives, okay? We've had to have a mother, right? I mean, how do we come into this world as a human without a mother, right? We need a mother. Where's our mother? Where's our mother? Maybe the person next to you. Maybe the person that cut you off in traffic. Yes. Maybe everybody here has been each other's mother many times. Mahayana Buddhists think this way. Okay? And it brings us naturally closer to others, even if they cut us off in traffic. And that's a way of developing gratitude. Okay? To be thankful. You know, even little things. You know, people, anything. You know, in the Tibetan culture, someone that taught you the ABCs or the kakagaganga, you know, the alphabet, you know, they, for the rest of their lives, they hold them dear as something so special. They show so much love and gratitude. That's the person that taught them the alphabet. Okay? You know, let alone everybody else. So gratitude is so rich. It just opens our hearts, makes us so much more alive, so much more meaning in our lives, and so much more compassionate, loving and compassionate. Okay? Generosity, you know, I won't spend time on these now because I want to get a little bit to meditation with you. So we can save these for another time, but they're marvelous, obviously. It's a way of opening up the heart. It's a way of expressing and developing deeper our compassion. Okay? To give, many ways to give. Ethical discipline, in other words, not harming. Okay? Not harming ourselves, not harming others. Learning to be better at this. Okay? More love and compassion. Tolerance, okay, kind of obvious. You know, kind of the opposite of anger, actually. Impatience or anger is the opposite of this. Okay, so learning to be less angry, more tolerant, more patient. Okay. Concentration, making our minds more like a laser through shamatha, kind of focused meditation, one type of meditation. Okay. Wisdom, we talked a little bit about that, the opposite of ignorance. Okay, similar, not the same, but similar to kind of more relativity kinds of stuff coming from quantum physics. Okay, similar. Okay, that things are not as they appear. So I often say, mind the gap. Okay, they say that in Hong Kong. I teach in Hong Kong. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's obviously from Britain, yeah? And what does it mean, mind the gap?
Make sure you don't fall in the subway system.
Don't fall in the subway system, right. There's that crack between the car and the platform, right? So when I say mind the gap, what do I mean?
Space between thoughts or...
I'm sorry?
Space.
Space between thoughts, yes, that's good. What else could it mean, the gap? Mind the gap. I just hinted at it, it's not easy.
Between reality and what appears.
You got it, between appearance and reality. That's exactly it. Because normally we take appearance to be real. The quantum physicists say it isn't like that. The Buddhists say it isn't that way. Okay? So to figure out what is that gap, that's wisdom. Okay? And it brings tremendous joy because it gets rid of all these destructive emotions because they're all based on this ignorance. Okay? So I'm going to go a little quick here. That's another talk, another time. Let's do meditation, okay? Do I have another? No, that's it, okay. So let's meditate. Let me say a couple words and we'll meditate and then we'll change and do more interactive stuff. Please sit up straight. And while you sit up straight, kind of relax your shoulders. You know, keep them straight and up, but relax them. Let them drop, okay? We're going to do this with our eyes open. Some of you may have, you may meditate with your eyes closed. If you can't do it with your eyes open, you can close them. But try to do it with your eyes open. Keep your heads up and look, glance down in front of you like this. Okay, glance just a little bit down comfortably. Try to have a soft gaze. Do you know what that is? So whatever you kind of see, your knees or whatever you're kind of in your visual field there, try not to engage it. That's what I mean by soft gaze. May work, may not, it's okay, but try not to engage it. And then I want you just to focus on the bottom of your nose. As your air, you're going to keep your mouth closed, okay? And breathe normally, and your air is going to go in and out through the nose. And I want you to focus on that sensation of the air passing at the base of the nose. I don't want you to follow your breath. I don't want you to follow it way out and way in and down. No, just park your mind. Keep your mind focused right at the bottom of the nose. Okay, breathe normally. Now, you may get distracted. There may be a sound. You may get some gurgling from your stomach saying, when's dinner? Okay. Excuse me, I just did. You may get a thought or a feeling, a bodily sensation, and your mind may go away from focusing on this breath at the base of the nose. Recognize you're distracted, just bring it back to the base of the nose, the breath. Okay? You may have to do that a lot, many times, no problem. That's meditation. Let's do this for 5 minutes. I'll meditate with you, so please meditate. If you like, you can put your hands like this. Left hand down, right hand on top, thumbs pointing up, and then just rest it in your lap. Okay? So left hand down, right hand on top, thumbs together pointing up, and just relax it in your lap. Good. please stop your meditation. So that was just a taste. If you like it and you're not doing regular meditation, please bring that into your life. A good time is in the morning. I know none of us have time, okay? But take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You know, you don't have to watch the clock. And if you can find a quiet place, sometimes that's not possible. So the most quiet place, and just, you know, spend the 5 or 10 minutes every morning. Make it a habit. It's a very good thing to do for yourself, which then ripples out to others. We have a public figure Facebook site. A lot of the things I talked about tonight are there. We have this Altruism in Medicine, Altruism in Medicine Institute, altruismmedicine.org, which is promoting education, curriculum development, and trying to bring more compassion in the healthcare sector. It's a nonprofit, 501c3. Anyone that wants to help support us, of course monetarily or with time, they're welcome to contact us. And I'd like to thank Jim Doty and everyone at Stanford Sea Care Center, which is one of the premier centers in the world doing this kind of work in compassion. And I don't know how you see it in the Stanford community, but from looking at it from a world perspective, it's one of the few dots on the map that has such an incredible center going for so long, incredible activities and incredible people and impact that comes out of this work. So you're very fortunate to have it here at home in Stanford. Thank you very much.
Barry, could you speak a little bit more about forgiveness?
Yes.
From sort of family and self and those sorts of things that tend to be, you know, disciplined and easier to work on to, like, for example, in my world, I'm neither, you know, so when China chases out His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for some reason in my world, that creates something difficult for me to forgive, if that makes sense. Not knowing what is Chinese or Tibetan, but that happens. I sort of characterize that in these groups, and maybe perhaps I feel sort of vulnerable. If it could happen to him, it could happen to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, generally our forgiveness is to another person. So it would be a specific individual. And it doesn't mean that we say that that person is right. Doesn't mean that. You know, we can respectfully differ in our opinions, but we don't hold that hurt that destroys us. Okay, we let go of it, recognizing that we're not necessarily agreeing. We're just letting go of the hurt. We can still negotiate, discuss. We can be tough when we need to. Again, on the inside, we're not being angry. You know, we're trying to have that compassion, that understanding the other person. But can sometimes be tough, particularly when there's injustice, to fight that injustice. And I gave the examples of, you know, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and others. So it's really a healing process for us to let go of the hurt. Doesn't mean the other person's right. Okay. Yes, please. Please. Yes.
I would like to know more about the curriculum you're developing for healthcare professionals.
Okay, lovely. You know, we're trying to work initially with medical students at HKU, at University of Hong Kong. There are some proposals, actually, I work in the prison system in Japan with the juvenile prisons. And there's a woman who's high up in that system. It's under the MOJ, the Ministry of Justice, the corrections departments, or I don't know what they call it, department something, is under the Ministry of Justice. And she's someone high up in that ministry and knows a lot of the high people. And she's very interested in this stuff. And so we've been having dialogues with her, and she wants us to develop a curriculum for the juvenile prisoners. So we're beginning to, you know, we're having that dialogue. For the medical students, a lot of what I presented today is kind of the content of that stuff. Of course, it's in a non-Buddhist context completely. So the ignorant stuff, when I went a little bit into the Buddhist notion of wisdom, that it probably won't be there, because it's like in this country, a clear separation of church and state, and the medical schools are almost all state. This is private, but still in the higher education, you know, that separation has to generally be there, and so we're respecting that, of course.
Do you see that as a year-long program, or what?
What we're doing at HKU is developing a curriculum that would be a semester for undergraduates. It would be a required, it's called a core curriculum course. There are a number of them that all the undergraduates have to take. They can choose. So, you know, not all the 30,000 undergraduates will take this course, but, you know, a lot of them will. They'll, you know, so it's one of the number they can choose from. That's probably several years down the line, realistically, just all the application processes and the different phases you got to go through to get this thing approved. I do have a lot of support from a vice chancellor, Ian Holliday, who's a wonderful man, and he just wants to get this thing, you know, developed. So we have support from some good people there. Yes, please. Yes, please. You know, I think compassion goes out to everyone. And so even the, you know, the hardliners in this case, if you will, the ones that are kind of setting the policy or making the decisions that we got to keep a person alive at any cost, I mean, we have to be compassionate to those people also, I think. I think we need to enter into these dialogues of, you know, because I don't think doctors often want to be in that position, but I think they kind of feel forced, either by the family or by something else, to be in that position. So if we can kind of find ways that we can work as a group, as a team, someone who's more professionally oriented in this, you know, the medical side, the family side, you know, if the family's interested, and then really have a meaningful dialogue and make some collective decisions, I think that's a good way to go. And to get there doesn't happen overnight. And so, you know, I think to make it easier for everyone who's got authority and power in these situations to enter that dialogue, I think then that is a little bit visionary, you know. It's looking ahead where we can try to establish these sort of groups or committees or whatever, you know, to kind of collectively make these decisions. It's not easy. Some countries handle it a lot better than I think we often do in this country. So we can learn from that too. Sometimes taking care of others is actually taking care of ourselves. If we check in, we'll find that to be true. Sometimes not. If we do almost too much, you know, we burn ourselves out. You know, then we don't stay so healthy and balanced. But, you know, often helping others is a wonderful way to take care of ourselves. Okay? So that's one little, that's also a practical thing, yeah? I find when I get stuck or I get a little too me, I just kind of think, you know, okay, others, what can I do? How can I help? What can I do? And just thinking that is wonderful. You don't always have to act, you know. And when we do act, sometimes we put our foot in our mouth. That's an American expression, isn't it? Right, okay, I had a doubt there for a moment. Because the Japanese say when you rub noses, right? When you're in someone's face, okay? We say if you put your foot in your mouth, you make a mistake. And we do that sometimes. So there's a great Tibetan expression which is 9 times failing, falling down, literally it's falling down. It means 9 times failing, and 9 times picking yourself up. Did you notice there's no guilt there? They don't have a word for guilt, Tibetan language. And in Buddhism, there's no concept for guilt. Really. There is regret, but it's kind of neutral. The emotional tone is neutral. There's no guilt. Okay? So when we feel guilt coming, you know, show it the back door. Sometimes simple things like that work. I don't need you anymore. You're familiar. You've been, you know, like my shadow since I was a kid. But I'm now growing up. I don't need you anymore. There's the back door. Yeah, sometimes things like that can be helpful. There are other ways to work with that, but okay. Yes, please. Yes, please.
I have 2 things.
Yes.
Can you speak of the difference between open-eyed meditation and closed-eyed?
Yes, open versus closed eyes meditation.
The other one, the 9-round breathing?
9-round breathing, okay. Sorry we didn't get time for that. That takes probably 10 minutes. The 9-round breathing, just kind of talk about it, demonstrate it, do it with you, and then have you guys do it. I'll demonstrate it, and then later sometime we'll have to make some time where we can actually do it together. Open and closed eyes, not a big difference. Okay, we tend to be sleepy when we close our eyes. So if you find yourself at the end of the day, you've had a lot of work, and you sit and meditate, close your eyes, you may find the tendency to kind of snooze off. So keeping your eyes open helps avoid that, or reduces that possibility, not necessarily avoid. Secondly, and the main reason, is that clarity over time with our meditation, not of the object but of our mind, mental clarity, is excuse me, greater when we've meditated with our eyes open. Those are the reasons. But the difference is not huge. The big thing is to do it regularly, to meditate, eyes open or closed. Yes, please. Yes, please.
You mentioned inner peace earlier.
Yes.
And I think we all believe that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a relative thing, though,
Mm-hmm.
because we find different levels of inner peace.
Yep.
But I was surprised when you said those of you who have experienced that, you know it. Because I think, you have to mind the gap. I could think that I'm peaceful because I used to be in so much turmoil, but now I'm really a peaceful guy.
Relative, yeah.
But really, compared to perhaps yourself, I might be filled with inner conflict.
Right.
And so it just seems to me that we're gonna move into deeper and deeper levels forever.
I agree. And I think you know that. I mean, you told me you knew that now you're in less conflict than before. So one level, say, of inner peace. I do think we know it, Yes, as we go deeper with and more expansive with our compassion. And as our compassion moves, I think there are many levels. At a maybe lower level is selfish. I'll be compassionate, or I'll love you if you love me. We often do that in relationship, yeah. We may not say it, but, I'll be kind to you, I'll love you if you do the same to me, okay? And then as we move a little bit towards maybe this is too harsh, but maturity, okay? I'll do it because I kind of know that you're in trouble, you're hurting, and you want a hug, you need a smile, or whatever, expression of loving kindness, of compassion. And then we move on to this statement that I mentioned halfway through, just understanding that we're all the same from the perspective that we all want to feel well, none of us want to hurt. Just knowing that will stimulate, will motivate, will inspire me to be loving and compassionate to another person, okay? Not expecting anything in return. Even if they don't say thank you, even if they don't smile, or you may want some particular thing in return. Maybe you want money, or you want them to do the same thing back. Free of that, okay? And then maybe another step, if you will, equally. So they say that the Buddha, one of his main disciples was sitting one side of him, and his cousin, who was very jealous of him and tried to kill the Buddha twice, was sitting on the other side, that he had equal love and compassion. This is often said about Jesus. I think, I don't know, Jesus in my mind probably was a bodhisattva, if not a Buddha. I mean, obviously incredible, love and compassion, without strings, So that kind of stuff. So I do think there are a lot of levels. So love and compassion and inner peace, they're not far away. They're kind of neighbors. They're kind of, maybe identical twins or something, yeah. So I agree. I think that's lovely. Yes, please. Oh, come on. No more questions? Please.
I just want to mention to anybody in this forum that CCARE offers compassion cultivation training here at Stanford. So anybody who wants to develop more compassion and self-compassion, as well as compassion for others, check out CCARE's website.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please.
Okay, I have a question. A monk. Question for a monk.
A monk. Yep.
In the beginning, when you got into this, being a monk,
Yes.
how did they approach for you to chant Om in relationship to the self? And
Yeah.
is it so that when you have a lot of monks together chanting Om that way, it sort of charges up the possibility for contacting the self through that Om?
Yeah. In my tradition, Tibetan Buddhism, we tend not to have that as our chant, Om, but we do other things. We do chant other things. It's not a primary practice for us. You know, we do more of meditation and study. Okay. But we do chant sometimes, and when we do it in a monastic group, it's very powerful. Very powerful. You know, one really good kind of technique to get to know, Buddhism is found on no self.
It sounds deep. What I'm hearing there, the implication, maybe it's because of my orientation. It sounds like it's a step beyond, like the Occidental approach of understanding what the self is. The self is still an object, maybe.
I agree with you. It may be a step beyond, a step deeper towards more happiness, towards deeper love and compassion. Because as our ego becomes reduced and eventually eliminated, all that's there is love and compassion. So yes, that's the direction we're going. Thank you.